The day I was supposed to have dinner with my parents, we waited at the restaurant from afternoon until nightfall, but Julia never showed. I called her, but it went to voicemail every time. Then, a notification popped up on my phone. Her childhood best friend had just posted on Instagram. The photo was a beaming selfie of him in a car, a familiar watch on his wrist. The caption read, "Thanks for the birthday gift, Jules. I love it." I stared at his post, my thumb hovering over the screen before I mechanically tapped the heart icon. Later, I told her, "If you love him that much, just marry him." Her eyes grew red-rimmed, her voice unsteady. "You're my boyfriend." "Not anymore," I thought. "Not since you gave him that watch." Before I saw the post from Ethan Shaw, Julia's lifelong best friend, I was still making excuses for her. Now, the proof was glowing on my screen. I felt a suffocating, near-death sensation creep into my chest. I'd seen that watch before, tucked away in her closet. She kept it in a small, velvet-lined box in a hidden corner. I had told her more than once how much I love that particular brand, not just for the watch, but because they made a matching set of rings. A pair. I thought it was a sign she was finally thinking about marriage. I'd been filled with so much hope. I had assumed that when she suggested dinner with my parents tonight, it was to talk about getting engaged. But in the end, she was the one who set it all up, and she was the one who bailed. Looking at his picture, my eyes started to sting. Something inside me was cracking, piece by piece. My mom noticed the change in my expression. "Is something wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I forced a tight, ugly smile. "Let's not wait anymore. Let's eat." "Are you sure we shouldn't wait a little longer?" "No," I said, my voice flat. "There's no need to wait for her anymore." I picked up my fork, a signal for them to start. The food had been on the table for ages, reheated so many times while we waited that it had lost all its flavor. Each bite was tasteless. My mom saw something was deeply wrong, but didn't press. My dad, who had lost his patience hours ago, ate quickly and then left with her. I walked out with a gift I'd brought for her, wandering aimlessly down the street. It was already 10 o'clock. The sidewalks were mostly empty, the flow of traffic thinning to a trickle. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Julia. I ignored the call and ordered an Uber. The moment I walked into our apartment, her angry voice hit me. "Who were you out with? Why are you back so late?" My chest tightened. I clutched the gift bag in my hand and asked, my face a blank mask, "Julia, do you remember what you promised me this morning?" Before she left for work, I'd reminded her about dinner, worried she might forget. I'd wanted her to be on time, to make a good impression on my parents. She had smiled and promised, "I'm meeting your parents." How could I forget something so important? Julia froze, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. She remembered. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice softening with apology. "Work was just insane today. It completely slipped my mind." She walked towards me, her arms outstretched for a hug. I shifted away without a word. As she got closer, I caught a faint scent on her clothes, a mix of lavender and bergamot. It was the signature scent of that artisanal coffee shop Ethan was always posting about. A look of surprise flashed in her eyes. She hadn't expected me to pull away. "Liam, are you mad at me?" I looked at her, my own eyes cold. "Were you really at work all day? Are you questioning me?" Her voice turned sharp, an edge of indignation in it. Seeing her feigned anger, I suddenly felt like I was looking at a stranger. Or maybe this was the real her, and she'd never let me see it before. I took a deep breath. "Julia, let's break up." I'd said her name countless times, but never with such calm detachment. Julia went rigid, her gaze turning icy. She almost spat the words. "What did you just say?" We'd always been so careful with each other. Whenever an argument was about to start, one of us would change the subject. We both knew fighting was toxic. I never wanted to fight, but that didn't mean we could avoid conflict forever. I said, "We're breaking up. I'm setting you free." It felt like the most mature way to do it. No messy drama, no lingering resentment. She just stared at me, her eyes locked on my face. "You're doing this over one little thing?" I met her gaze, then walked silently into the bedroom. "Liam, you get back here and tell me what this is all about," she yelled after me. I ignored her and opened the closet, pulling out all the clothes from the corner where she'd kept the box. Just as I suspected, the little red velvet box was gone. I pointed to the empty space, swallowing the bitter taste in my mouth. "You were the one who invited my parents to dinner," I said, each word precise and heavy. "And instead, you spent the evening celebrating another man's birthday. You gave him a watch that was supposed to symbolize a commitment, a future. Julia, what am I supposed to think?" I hadn't wanted to spell it out, but I wasn't going to let her paint me as petty. Julia just frowned, her tone dismissive. "So I missed one dinner. I'll treat them tomorrow. It's not a big deal. And the watch? It's just an accessory. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? If you want one, I'll buy you a dozen tomorrow." She always did this, minimizing my feelings. In her world, anything that could be solved with money wasn't a real problem. A sarcastic smile touched my lips. No, thanks. You can buy them for whoever you want. I made my decision on the way home. There was no point in dragging this out. Julia couldn't understand where I was coming from. You're not thinking clearly right now, she said coldly. We'll talk when you've calmed down. Before I could respond, she turned and walked out the door. I stood there in the silence, a silence so complete it was unnerving. I thought she would have agreed to the breakup instantly. Instead, she chose to run from it. A wave of disgust washed over me. If she had someone else she couldn't let go of, why was she stringing me along, making us both miserable? I took a moment to steady myself. A breakup isn't like a proposal. It doesn't require two yes. Now that the words were out, I had no reason to stay here. My parents, both high school history teachers, were in town for a conference and leaving in 5 days. With nowhere else to go, I started packing a bag to check into a hotel. If we were breaking up, it had to be a clean break. Once I was done, I deleted her number, our message threads, and unfollowed her on every platform. A clean slate. As the quiet of the unfamiliar hotel room settled around me, I found myself thinking back. I'd had a crush on Julia for years, long before she knew I existed. To her, we were just from the same university. I was a senior in her department, just one of many who had come before her. Julia had been a campus celebrity, student body president, brilliant, beautiful, the untouchable goddess everyone talked about. I found out she loved animals and had started a campus club for animal welfare. To get her attention, I forced myself to overcome my fear of dogs and cats, pretending to be a passionate animal lover. I even joined the student government just to have a reason to be near her. After graduation, she took over her family's company, Morgan Enterprises. I was just another entry-level employee. Maybe because she remembered me from college, she looked out for me. I sank into what I thought was special treatment, completely losing myself. Thinking about it now, I had to laugh at my own foolishness. I finally understood. If you live in a dream for too long, you forget what's real. While staying at the hotel, I started looking for a new apartment and went to work as usual. I was just a low-level analyst in the marketing department. As CEO, Julia Morgan wouldn't even notice I was there. But I was wrong. That afternoon, my manager brought explosive news. The assistant VP position I was sure I had locked down had been snatched away. Everyone, I'd like you to meet our new assistant VP of marketing, Ethan Shaw. Let's all make him feel welcome. The air in the office went still. Everyone's eyes darted to me. Some curious, some suspicious, some just eager for the drama. I looked at him, my expression cold. Ethan met my gaze with a look of pure provocation, as if to say anything I want, I get, whether it's Julia or this job. Just then, Julia walked in with her executive assistant, her eyes sweeping over the office with detached indifference. When her gaze met mine, it was like she was looking at a stranger, not a flicker of recognition. She didn't say a word, but her presence was a clear endorsement. The office erupted in polite applause, welcoming him. I had been so certain I was getting that promotion that I'd taken her out to dinner to celebrate, even joking that she'd have to start calling me Mr. Carter. She knew how much this meant to me. It didn't take a genius to figure out this was her way of putting me in my place. But what she didn't know was that her biggest competitor had been trying to recruit me for months, and their offer was a standing one. If I couldn't stay here, I'd have to find another path. As soon as the welcome wagon routine was over, I stepped out and called the VP at the other company. I told him what had just happened. I thought he'd want to wait until my contract was up, but he surprised me. He said they'd pay my breach of contract fee. I could start on Monday. I had spent 4 years in Morgan's marketing department. Many of the company's biggest partnerships were the result of deals I'd hammered out over countless client dinners and drinks. I had a lot of valuable connections. The competition knew that. It was why they were willing to pay so much to poach me. I didn't say yes right away. I told them I needed a couple of days to think. I had to plan my future carefully, not make another blind decision. When it was time to leave work, I was for the first time ever the first one to pack up and head out. I was usually the last to leave, always trying to get ahead. My coworkers ribbed me about it, saying I was already slacking off after missing the promotion. I just smiled and said nothing. I didn't expect to see her car parked by the curb as soon as I walked out of the building. I pretended not to notice and started walking towards the bus stop. Ethan rolled down the passenger side window. Liam, hey man, over here. We're waiting for you. There were still plenty of people from the office around. At the sound of his voice, heads turned. Not wanting a scene with my colleagues as an audience, I walked over, my face a cold mask. Something I can help you with, Mr. Shaw. He chuckled at my formal tone. We're not at the office. You could just call me Ethan. Behind the wheel, Julia's beautiful face was a study in aloofness. She didn't even glance at me, but the slight furrow of her brow betrayed her impatience. "Come on, Liam, get in," Ethan said. "It's my first day. I want to take you and Jules out for a celebratory dinner." "No, thanks. I'm not hungry." I turned to leave. Julia's icy gaze shot towards me. "Get in the car." I let out a short, sharp laugh, ignored her, and hailed a cab from the street. Now that I was changing jobs, the location of my new apartment had to change, too. As soon as I got in the Uber, I was on the phone with a real estate agent, asking him to look for places in a new neighborhood. Until I found something the hotel would have to do. After dinner, I went for a walk, scoping out the area for any promising apartment buildings, but nothing felt right. Back in my room, after a shower, I lay in bed and scrolled through Instagram. And there it was, another post from Ethan, uploaded 10 minutes ago. It was a picture from a restaurant. He didn't show Julia's face directly, but he'd framed the shot to perfectly capture her slender, delicate hand on the table. On her wrist was a bracelet I knew well. It was the first birthday gift I ever bought her with my first real paycheck. It couldn't compare to the designer pieces he bought her, but she'd always said she loved it and wore it often. I used to believe her. Then, last month, I overheard her assistant telling someone Julia only wore it to meetings with certain nonprofits because it was inexpensive and didn't look flashy. My eyes fell to his caption, "First day on the job. Looking forward to learning from the best, CEO at Julia Morgan." He'd ended it with a high-key kissy face emoji. How romantic. I gave it a like, then promptly unfriended him. The next morning, after getting ready for work, I opened my hotel room door to find a bouquet of lush, black baccarat roses on the floor. I frowned and kicked them aside. When I looked up, I met Julia's displeased gaze. She was dressed impeccably, her long hair cascading over her shoulders like a porcelain doll come to life. In her other hand, she held a takeout bag. "I thought black roses were your favorite," she said. "But not from you," I replied evenly. "How did you find me here?" She bit her lip. "I looked up the delivery address from when you ordered food on my phone." I remember it then. I'd used her phone to order takeout once. She'd teased me about eating junk food again. I gave her a cool look and walked past her toward the elevator. Julia picked up the roses and hurried after me. "When are you moving back home?" she asked, catching the elevator door just as it was closing. Her voice was sharp with impatience. I looked at her coldly. "That's not my home. Why would I go back?" "Julia, you need to remember something. We're broken up." "Is this because I gave the assistant VP job to Ethan?" she asked, her eyes fixed on me, her tone suddenly softer. "Look, if you just stop this nonsense, I'll promote you later. He's only here to get some experience before he goes back to his family's company. He won't be there for long." Her words were a slap in the face. The position I had worked so hard for was nothing more than a temporary placeholder for someone else. It was as if all my effort, all my ambition, was a complete joke to her. I met her gaze, my voice calm and devoid of emotion. "Don't bother. I don't need anything from you anymore. Not the job, not the watch, and not you." Julia's face fell, her expression darkening. Just then, the elevator doors opened to the lobby. I walked out without a backward glance at her stormy face. When I got to the office building, I saw Ethan in the lobby talking to Julia's assistant. He spotted me and smiled. "Hey, Liam, I heard you took a personal day yesterday. Feeling okay?" As he spoke, he fiddled with a metal cufflink on his sleeve. My eyes caught the movement, and I froze. They were the ones Julia had told me she was getting me for my birthday last month. She'd even asked me if I liked the design, worried I wouldn't. Ethan noticed my gaze. "Oh, these," he said, feigning nonchalance. "Jules got them for me. I told her she didn't have to, but she insisted. Pretty nice, right? I wanted her to get you a pair, too. But it turns out they're a limited edition. Only 3 in the entire country, and this was the last set. Between the two of us, it was painfully obvious who was her priority." I glanced from the ring on his finger to the cufflinks on his wrist and managed a thin smile. "They're great. They really suit you. You know it's still early. You two should just go to City Hall and make it official. Wishing you both the best." My flat, perfunctory praise made the smile on his face falter. "Liam, what are you talking about? You're her boyfriend. Thanks to you, not anymore. Your window's open, buddy. Don't blow it." I gave him a mock-encouraging pat on the shoulder, mumbled a few more pleasantries, and headed upstairs. That sealed it. I had to get out of here. Out of sight, out of mind. That afternoon, I called the VP at the rival company and officially accepted his offer. All I had to do now was get ready to start my new job on Monday. Today was my parents' last day in the city. I booked a nice restaurant to take them out for a farewell dinner. My mom asked, "Will Julia be joining us?" I shook my head. "We broke up. She's not coming." My dad's tense expression immediately softened. "Good. I'm glad you came to your senses. You two were never on the same path. Forcing it would have only ended in disaster. His words were blunt, but they were true. When we first got together, both sets of parents disapproved. Hers thought my middle-class family was beneath them. It took years of relentless effort on my part to finally win their approval. I should have realized it then. A person who truly loves you will meet you halfway. I had been the one trying to please her parents, while on my side, I was the only one trying to convince mine. "You're right, Dad," I said, my voice firm. "I won't make that same mistake again." For the first time in a long time, we had a meal together as a family that was just about us. The next day, I saw my parents off at the station. Word of my resignation had already spread through the old office. The new VP had taken care of everything, so there was no need for me to ever set foot in Morgan Enterprises again. I spent the day with the real estate agent, and luckily, he was good at his job. Within a day, I had a new place. It was a short, 10-minute walk from my new office. I was thrilled. I signed the lease and went back to the hotel to pack. Just as I was finishing up and about to order some food, my phone rang. It was my old colleague. "Dude, you have incredible timing," he said. "It's a good thing you got out when you did, or you'd be losing your mind right now." "Why? What happened?" I asked, confused. "That massive project you landed, the one you worked on for months? Our new genius, Ethan, managed to blow it. That client only agreed to partner with us because of you. Swapping you out at the last minute was already a bad move." He sounded genuinely angry, and when they raised some valid concerns, that psycho Ethan actually started yelling at them in the meeting, telling them they had no vision. They probably blacklisted our entire company. Hearing that, I remembered the project. I'd actually felt a little bad about leaving it unfinished, and I was planning on putting together a transition document for whoever took over. After what he just told me, I changed my mind. "Well, if he wanted it so badly, he can have it," I said. The client for that project was notoriously difficult. Without someone holding his hand, Ethan was bound to fail. We chatted for a bit longer. Just as I hung up, another call came in from an unknown number. I was about to reject it, but my thumb slipped and I answered. Julia's voice, tight with anger, came through the speaker. "Liam, are you really going to take it this far?" So, she'd heard I was jumping ship and was calling to chew me out. "Say whatever you want. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. A good X is a silent X. No need to drag things out." With that thought, I went into my phone settings and enabled a feature to automatically block calls from unknown numbers. After taking care of everything, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. For so long, everything I did was filtered through the lens of her approval, terrified of upsetting her. I had made her the center of my universe and lost myself in the process. Even her own mother had warned me once not to focus so much of my life on her. I didn't listen then. Looking back, she was right. Being on my own was good. I didn't have to walk on eggshells for anyone. I could do whatever I wanted. If I was bored, I could go to a movie and lose myself in it without worrying about the time. I was starting to enjoy the freedom of living alone. I was thriving. But the good times never last. I discovered, to my horror, that my new next-door neighbor wasn't new at all. Staring at the impeccably dressed figure of Ethan Shaw standing in the hallway, the smile on my face slowly vanished. The quiet corridor was filled only by the sound of the true crime podcast playing from my phone. Ethan looked just as surprised to see me. "What are you doing here?" I ignored him, turned to my door, and punched in the keypad code under his stunned gaze. I walked inside and shut the door behind me. I thought New York was big enough that we'd never cross paths unless one of us made an effort. I never imagined we'd end up living across the hall from each other. What nightmare. I tried to put it out of my mind and focused on my new job. A few days later, I was working late and came home to see a familiar car parked just outside the apartment building's entrance. Julia and Ethan were standing by the car, talking about something. The look on his face was one of dejection. Julia's expression was gentle, her eyes soft with affection as she spoke to him in a low, soothing voice. Suddenly, Ethan noticed me walking towards them. He immediately wrapped his arms around her in a tight hug. She stiffened for a second, but didn't push him away. They were standing directly in the only entrance to the building. To get home, I had to walk past them. "Oh, for heaven's sake, get a room," an elderly woman grumbled as she shuffled past me. Annoyed by their public display, she marched right up to them and started lecturing. I watched coldly for a moment before continuing toward the door. But Julia saw me. Guilt flashed in her eyes, and she quickly pushed Ethan away, striding towards me. "Liam, don't get the wrong idea. It has nothing to do with me." I cut her off, my voice like ice. "Excuse me. You're my way." "Liam, man, it's been weeks. Are you still mad at Jules?" Ethan asked, his eyes full of feigned sadness and guilt. But over his shoulder, where she couldn't see, he shot me a triumphant smirk. I was getting tired of this game. "What is it you want from me?" I snapped back. I already wished you two the best. What's with the soap opera act? What does he mean by that? Julia asked, her gaze shifting between us, confused. Ethan's face tightened. Nothing, he said quickly. Oh, it was nothing, I said breezily. Just saw his lovey-dovey Instagram post and offered my congratulations, that's all. Julia didn't understand and started to ask another question, but Ethan, panicked, cut her off. Jules, don't you have that important board meeting today? You should probably head back and get ready. Seeing his guilty-ass-in expression, I almost laughed. Julia hesitated, gave me one last, long look, and then got in her car and drove away. The moment she was gone, Ethan's demeanor changed. He glared at me. Don't think little tricks like that are going to make her fall for you. She's mine. She's always been mine. I just waved a dismissive hand at his furious face. Yours. All yours. Hope you two live happily ever after. Then I turned and went home. I shouldn't have been surprised when I walked out the next morning and saw Julia waiting outside the building again. As she started toward me, I held up a hand. I'm not Ethan. You can save the charm offensive. Liam, I came here for you. Her eyes looked wounded. She held out a bag with breakfast. I went to that little bakery you love. You have stomach issues. You need to eat something in the morning. My stomach issues were from years of drinking at client dinners to advance my career at her company. It had been 3 years, and she was only just now remembering. I gave a slight, bitter smile. Do you really think any of this matters? I never wanted to break up, she said earnestly, her eyes pleading. I know I was wrong before. I'll make it up to you, I swear. Please, just give me another chance. I looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time in a while. When you say these things, do you even think about Ethan? You give him everything he wants, no questions asked, and then you come to me playing the devoted girlfriend. Julia, who do you think you are? You can't just have it all. Her face went pale. I only see Ethan as a brother, she said weakly. I've never had romantic feelings for him. I felt sick. Have you ever seen a sister give her brother a watch that symbolizes a marriage proposal? Honestly, if you love him this much, just marry him. Her eyes welled up, her voice trembling. You're my boyfriend. Not anymore, I said, my voice firm. That end of the day, you stood me up to give him that watch. I thought I'd made myself perfectly clear. But that afternoon, a delivery of coffee and pastries arrived for me at the office, sent by her. Oh, and this came with it, the delivery guy said, carefully pulling a small, red velvet box from his pocket. It was the one from her closet. The lady who ordered said, this is for you. I immediately refused it. The delivery guy looked distressed. Sir, this thing is way too valuable. I was terrified carrying it over here. If you won't take it, you'll have to return it yourself. If I lose this, it's 2 years of my salary down the drain. As a fellow working guy, I couldn't do that to him. I took the box, but I didn't open it. I didn't want someone else's property. I planned to give it to Ethan when I got home, but I learned from the doorman that he had already moved out. The apartment across the hall was empty again. With no other choice, I had to unblock Julia and add her as a contact again. The second she accepted, I sent her a message. Send someone to come pick up this watch. I used to work at Morgan Enterprises. A lot of people there still knew me. If I was seen returning a watch to her, the rumor mill would go into overdrive. It could also create problems for me at my new company. She replied, I thought you liked that watch. I got it back specifically for you. I felt a surge of anger. She still didn't get it. I don't want it. Send someone to get it now, or I'm throwing it out. She didn't reply. Instead, a message came through from her mother, asking to meet tomorrow. The address was a coffee shop across the street from my new office. I figured it was a good opportunity. I could give the watch to her mom. I agreed. The next afternoon, I walked into the coffee shop. Mrs. Morgan's face lit up when she saw me. Liam, dear, come sit. I ordered you a coffee with 2 sugars, just how you like it. Not too bitter. I thanked her and sat down. She got straight to the point. Liam, I heard you and Julia are talking about breaking up. Is it true? It's not talk, Mrs. Morgan. It's real. I replied with a polite smile. Disappointment clouded her face. I'm so fond of you, you know. I was really hoping you and Julia would work things out. She told me what happened, and I agree, she was completely in the wrong. Her behavior was very disappointing. I can understand why you'd want to end things. It's just such a shame. She had tried to push Julia toward marriage multiple times, but Julia always deflected. It was obvious she was resistant to the idea. Mrs. Morgan sighed heavily. We're the ones who owe you an apology. We've wasted 4 years of your life. That's why I chose to let go, I said. People who aren't right for each other shouldn't be together. I took the small box out of my bag and pushed it across the table. Could I ask you to please take this back? We've broken up. It wouldn't be right for me to keep it. Her eyes flickered. A glimmer of hope returned. She gave this to you. Doesn't that mean she was finally thinking about marriage? Maybe you two could get one more try. I shook my head, my smile unwavering. She told me herself it was just an ordinary accessory with no special meaning. Besides, I added, my voice clear and final, I'm not in love with her anymore. I was moving forward. I would not look back. The hope and misses. Morgan's eyes died. She took the box. All right then, she said softly. A fine young man like you deserves better. It's our fault. We spoiled her run. Returning the watch felt like a massive weight had been lifted. The delivery guy was right. That thing was expensive. I couldn't afford to replace it. That night, however, I received a voice message from Julia. Her words were slurred with alcohol. Are you really not going to give me another chance? Are you just going to throw away our 4 years together like this? You're the one who threw it away first, not me. I had no interest in arguing with a drunk. I sent one last text. Ms. Morgan, I hope we can both move on with dignity. Look forward, not back. We were adults. We had to take responsibility for our choices. And we had to understand that not everything in life comes with a do-over. With my personal life sorted out, I threw myself into my work. The VP wanted to promote me, but my resume wasn't as strong as some other candidates. He called me into his office. Are you willing to go abroad for advanced training? He asked. The company will cover all expenses, but you'll have to sign a contract guaranteeing you won't work for another company for the next 2 decades. Basically, they were buying my loyalty. They would invest in me, and I would create value for them. Okay, I said. I'll do it. You don't want to talk it over with your family first? I smiled. My family will support my decision. And your girlfriend? I don't have one. With that, the VP said no more. He just told me to get ready to go abroad. I told my parents about it. As I expected, they were fully supportive. The only thing I had ever done to disappoint them was insisting on being with Julia, losing myself in that relationship. Now that I was free, they were happier than anyone. With their blessing, I started the paperwork for my move. Somehow, Julia found out I was leaving the country. She showed up at my apartment building again. Seeing her waiting outside when I got home from work, I felt a flash of irritation. What do you want now? She looked nervous, hesitating before she spoke. Liam, are you going abroad because of me? I looked at her with pure disdain. Don't flatter yourself. This has nothing to do with you. Then why the sudden move? You've never talked about Julia. You have never once tried to actually know me. I cut her off. You never even really liked me. So why are you pretending to be so deeply invested now? Her face paled as she rushed to explain. Who says I don't like you? Liam, I know I was careless before, and I hurt you, but I do like you. That's why I was with you in the first place. There was a time when hearing those words would have made me ecstatic. Now it was just laughable. You like me, so I have to like you back? Get over yourself. Julia, stop bothering me. With that, I walked past her into the building without a second glance. I would be gone for 3 years. It was a waste of money to keep paying rent. I contacted my landlord and explained the situation. Thankfully, she was understanding and agreed to switch my annual lease to a month-to-month, ending at the end of the month. My old colleague called to wish me well when he heard I was moving abroad. We chatted for a few minutes before he launched into the latest office gossip. You know that project you were leading? Well, it completely fell apart just as we expected. The client only agreed to the deal because of you in the first place. Swapping you out was a huge mistake, he said. When they raised some concerns, that lunatic Ethan actually blew up at them, saying they lacked vision. It got so bad, they might have blacklisted our entire company. As he vented, I calmly polished my new set of golf clubs. It's fine. It's not your fault. Just do your job. If heads are going to roll, it won't be yours. I know, but his poor assistant got the axe. Fired for poor performance. She was so mad, she filed a formal complaint with the labor board. I don't know if she'll win, but good for her for fighting back. I felt a pang of sympathy. His assistant was competent. She'd intern with me for a while. She was diligent and responsible. I could only imagine how unfair this must feel. I had no idea that later that night, I'd see her on TikTok, live streaming her story and demanding a formal apology from Morgan Enterprises. Apparently, a lot of people had been in her shoes because the stream quickly blew up with tens of thousands of viewers. The comments were a firestorm of outrage against the company. Everyone was calling Julia a ruthless CEO. Then, the assistant laid out the entire story, and suddenly, the public's fury was directed not just at Julia, but at the main culprit, Ethan Shaw. You guys don't know the half of it, she said to her audience. The assistant VP of our department was supposed to be this other amazing guy. But then this psycho got parachuted in, stole his job, and bullied him into resigning. He was like a cancer in our department. Morgan Enterprises was forced to issue a public apology, but it did nothing to quell the outrage. My phone rang. It was Julia, desperately asking me to make a public statement to help clear things up. I laughed. Did she say a single thing that wasn't true? Why in the world would I lie to cover for your mistakes? I laid into her, then hung up. The company's reputation continued to plummet, dragging its stock price down with it. The board of directors was furious. After careful consideration, Julia finally made a choice between her company and Ethan Shaw. She chose the company. A few days later, Morgan Enterprises issued an official statement. Ethan Shaw had been terminated, and the company was pursuing legal action against him for damages to its reputation. Ethan was livid and had his family try to exert pressure, but the Morgans weren't backing down. One dirty move deserved another. While their two families were busy tearing each other apart, I was on a plane, leaving it all behind. My new life was just beginning. My new VP was a good guy, worried I'd be lost in a foreign country. He had arranged for his Chinese-American cousin to pick me up from the airport. I was expecting a middle-aged guy like him, but his cousin turned out to be a stunningly poised and graceful woman. I was momentarily speechless. "You're Mr. Lynn's cousin, Chloe Cho." "Yep, and you must be Liam Carter." After I confirmed, she effortlessly took my suitcase from my hand and started walking toward the exit. I hurried to keep up, trying to take the bag back, but she moved with a brisk, confident stride, not breaking her pace. "Mr. Lynn had arranged a small studio apartment for me. It wasn't large, but it felt safe and comfortable." I looked around, satisfied. Chloe put my luggage down and pointed to the apartment next door. "I live right there. Let me know if you need anything." "Okay, thank you." She gave me a long, thoughtful look, then turned and went home. I didn't think much of it and started unpacking. At first, it was hard adjusting to a new country. I fell out of place and even had trouble sleeping. Thankfully, Chloe was there. She was a pro at navigating these kinds of situations. I later learned that as a freelance translator, she was constantly traveling between countries and had picked up a lot of experience. One day, after a long week at work, Chloe invited me over to her place for a barbecue. She had a lot of friends, and every single one of them was warm and welcoming. I was a bit reserved at first, but as the evening went on, I started to relax and feel at home. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I excused myself and went inside to take the call. It was my old colleague. "Liam, am I interrupting anything?" I glanced out the window at the city lights. "No, not at all. What's up?" "I just wanted to tell you about Julia Morgan." He lowered his voice, as if he were hiding. "I heard from someone that she's been a total mess lately. She just hangs around outside your old apartment building, gets drunk, and keeps saying someone's name. I wasn't going to tell you, but people found out you used to live there, and now the rumor is that you two had a secret thing going on." Hearing this, I felt nothing. "That's not true," I said calmly. "I barely know her." Just then, Chloe's voice came from the other side of the door. "Liam, the food's ready. Come on out." "Coming." I called back. Then, to my colleague, I said, "Hey, someone's calling me. I've got to go." I hung up and looked out the window again. My eyes met Chloe's smiling gaze. My new life shouldn't be haunted by the ghosts of the old one. I put my phone away and walked back out to the party.